Some of the reactions from within the Saints locker room, although as of right now, there is no locker room to gather in because of the pandemic, which I think in a roundabout way helps. And you know what? If they were having off-season workouts right now, what happened yesterday may not have occurred. Who knows? But Emmanuel Sanders, SMH, ignorant, his reaction to what Drew Brees said yesterday. Alvin Kamara, oop, was his comment, and Cameron Jordan, be a better ally. That was just the start of it, and that was all before Malcolm Jenkins made his comments, Chris. And then later in the day, Marcus Davenport, who is a fairly young still member of the team, a first-round draft pick a couple of years ago, he posted a tweet defending Drew Brees, and Cam Jordan basically said, hey, Marcus, you're entitled to your opinion, but this ain't it. What Davenport said was Drew wasn't talking about the current protests, the riots, or really anything besides his feelings on kneeling during the national anthem. He even explained what they were, the basis, and that he actually stands with us. Do we have to entirely agree with him? No. And again, Cameron Jordan's reaction was, this ain't it. Does it seemingly denounce the focal point of what the intended kneeling was meant for? Yes. That gets back to the point we made earlier. The message was lost in this effort to say you're disrespecting the flag, you're disrespecting the military, you're disrespecting the country. And no matter how many times Colin Kaepernick or anyone else, including us, said, no, he's not, people didn't want to hear it. So I think that's where it went off the rails yesterday for Drew Brees, to bring back that deflection technique that we used in 2016 to justify not taking seriously what Colin Kaepernick
right. Well, and
was
Mike,
saying.
and not ever really hitting head on the issue of what was going on. You know, even in the Instagram comment, hey, it was motivational. It was nice. And some of the things he says on the Yahoo Finance interview, yeah, they're nice. I understand that. But of course, at the end, it was very insensitive answering that final comment. And then, you know, never really addressing the issue itself and taking it head on and saying what was wrong about that. And then going on, of course, the tirade about his grandfathers being in the World War II and all that, where I would want to say to, like, Drew, are you sure your grandfathers would be that happy right now if they saw the state of America and how African Americans are treated on a daily basis in our country? You know, I don't know. I had a grandfather that fought in World War II. I'd like to think that he wouldn't be happy with the way things are right now either. And it is a peaceful protest. So, yeah, that's where it all went wrong. And sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to do that.
No, it's fine. I mean, look, I want us to have the back and forth. I mean, look, I don't know where the Saints go from here. And Sean Payton, who we both have a ton of respect for, he's got a challenge now. He's got to figure out how to fix this. And I don't know that it necessarily falls on him. I think some in the locker room would say, Drew's got to fix it. Drew's got to do something.
No doubt.
You know, we're going to talk later. We're going to talk later about Vic Fangio, the Broncos coach. He said something on Tuesday that drew a reaction, and he quickly came out and said, I was wrong to say what I said. And we'll go into those details later in the program. But I think that the challenge now for Drew Brees is, what is he going to do to try to fix this? I think the comments that were made to Mike Triplett of ESPN.com yesterday were an effort to maybe begin the process of putting toothpaste back in the tube, but not nearly enough. I think anything other than I was wrong. And again, I don't want to speak for Drew Brees, but I think he's got to do something big at this point, and it's got to be believable to those in the locker room. Doesn't matter what the rest of us think. It's got to be believable to his teammates that this is something he is doing and saying, not simply to put out a fire that he started, but because it shows the true feelings that he has for what his teammates are going through. And it's not going to be easy because, let me tell you, the clock is ticking loudly. And with each passing hour, it's going to be harder and harder for Drew Brees to find a way to fix this. And it's going to be harder and harder for Sean Payton to find a way to fix it if Drew Brees doesn't fix it before Payton tries to pull everyone together and move forward.
Yeah, I agreed. I mean, I think, you know, Drew Brees, I don't think he has any choice but to just take this head on. And you're right. Admit, you know, wrong in what he said, and then try to continue and push the conversation into a good spot to join the good fight for what, you know, everybody in the National Football League is fighting for, which is, you know, equality and justice in our country for everybody. So that's where, you know, I think he's going to have to do that. And it's not going to be easy, certainly. And I think still people are going to be pissed off at him. No doubt about that. But I do think he's got to come out strong and just take this head on. He can't say, Malcolm Jenkins called him out. Drew didn't want to have the conversation in a public forum. Malcolm Jenkins let that be known there at the end of that comment. When I think Drew right now is in the corner of where, hey, Drew, I would advise you to take it head on and admit you were wrong and deal with those issues. And that's going to be the first phase of trying to heal the locker room. Because you're right, Mike. I mean, locker room ain't going to be the same. There's no doubt about it. There'll be respect and, politeness and things like that. Okay. All of that. But they're going to be looking at out of the corner of their eye at Drew Brees and looking at him in a different way. And then when they're in the huddle and in certain situations, they're going to be looking at him going, I don't know about this guy. Is he really in this with us, or is this just about him? There's going to be thoughts that are going to creep through guys' heads. So there's going to be a lot of healing. There's going to have to be team meetings. Sean Payton's going to have to lead the way and lead the charge here. But Drew Brees, I do think his best way to approach this is take it head on, take your lumps. You made a mistake, and show that you're sorry for it, and then try to mend the wounds you've created in the African-American community and all those that are, involved in this fight altogether.
And here's how jarring the reaction has been, Chris. We haven't even mentioned that LeBron James took on the issue and took issue directly with Drew Brees and his decision to rely upon his own grandfather's experiences, when the reality is grandfathers of African-American men fought for the country and they came home to anything but a hero's welcome, as Malcolm Jenkins said. So this thing has really taken off. And it's going to be one hell of a challenge for Drew Brees to put the toothpaste back in the tube. First of all, he has to want to do it. It has to be real. It has to be genuine. If he doesn't want to do it, if he is going to retreat to his corner and fold his arms and say everyone else is wrong and I'm right, and shame on them for not understanding my point, and I don't owe anyone an obligation, I have lived a life of service to others. I mean, it would be very easy for him to say, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to give in. I shouldn't have to give in. I don't know if it's going to fix things. I think he has to do something. And here's another example of why he should strongly consider what he can do. I mean, it would have been unthinkable yesterday at this time to hear that at a protest in New Orleans, there was a profane chant directed to Drew Brees. Why? The guy gave $5 million to COVID-19 relief. He's been one of the people who was directly responsible for rebuilding New Orleans in the aftermath of Katrina. The guy has done great things for his community, but it just shows you how quickly it can all be squandered. Because there was last night a profane 3-word chant, and the last 2 words were Drew Brees, and the first word is one that we cannot say. It broke out. It wasn't an overwhelming chant, but somebody from the New Orleans Times-Picayune captured it on video. It was enough people that you heard it, and it lasted 5 or 6 seconds, and I about fell out of my chair. And it just shows you how quickly, in a moment like this, when there is no middle ground, you can't carve out a middle ground here. You can't keep everyone happy here. And that may be what he was ultimately trying to do.
Right,
I don't know.
Right.
You have to pick a side on this, right? We said this yesterday. You're either in favor of equal treatment for all and against racism in all forms, as Shad Khan so eloquently put it. You're either in that camp or you're not. If you're anywhere else, you're not in that camp. It is as clear as it can be. You're either fully in support of all Americans, of all humans being treated with equality and justice and respect, and all the ideals that we see and hear in the anthem, in the Declaration of Independence, in the Constitution, and all of our founding documents. Either we are in favor of that and believe that for everyone, or we don't. It's that simple. And when you try, Chris, and this gets to the point you were making, if there is a little bit of a political effort here to keep everyone happy and not make anyone upset, well, you know what? The only way that you're going to avoid upsetting anyone in a time like this is to say nothing at all, is to not even do the interview, is to not speak, because you either have to be all in. If you're not all in on this movement, you're all out. And I think that's what happened yesterday. You don't try to both sides something like this. You're either with it, or if you're not with it, those who are with it are going to look at you and say, you're against it.
Yeah, well, as we see here, I mean, Drew Brees is, until yesterday, basically God in New Orleans. So that just tells you how passionate the subject is to people in our country and how it hits home and really cuts into people's skin when we have, unarmed, innocent African American people constantly being shown excessive force by the police, and then, of course, sometimes murdering them. So it is a sensitive subject. And Drew Brees echoed comments that, of course, the other side used to basically bring down the conversation of police brutality and squash that. So, and within that, at that time, of course, the players that were kneeling were being called sons of bitches and bastards, right? And then we saw that at the same time, we saw people with Confederate and Nazi flags being called very nice people, like they were better Americans. Why? Because they stand for the anthem. I mean, I think they break 50 laws a day and they're anti-American, and they should they shouldn't even be able to call themselves American in this country with some of that actions. So Brees echoes those talking points, and of course that inflames reactions from African American people and people like you and me, because we look at that as completely wrong, which it is. And that's the issue there. And, Drew Brees, who's done a lot of good things in his life, I know that. I mean, he really has. He's done a lot for New Orleans, the country, in a lot of ways. But he lost his way on this subject right here. And he was insensitive yesterday. And, yeah, he's going to have to do some building back of trust with people and, of course, some team building here in the recent future.
And again, time, it's not of the essence. It is the essence. It's you could argue it's already too late. Yeah, I'm serious.
It's going to be hard.
The intensity of this moment, something unlike anything I've ever experienced in almost 55 years of life, right? To come off in a way that your coworkers, your colleagues, your friends, your brothers in arms would regard as tone deaf in a moment like this is something that is going to be very hard to fix. And if you're going to fix it, right, you got to fix it immediately. You can't sit back and assess the damage. You can't put surrogates out there to take up for you and defend you and hope that'll turn the page. You've got to come up with a way to fix it yourself. And you have to understand that there's no way to fix it without getting your hands even dirtier than maybe they already are, or maybe taking a chunk out of your pride. I mean, look, this is a moment to set pride aside. If you truly want to fix this is a moment to set pride aside and admit the mistake loudly and plainly, and it's got to be convincing. It can't come off as contrived or and see, that's the problem, Chris. The longer it takes, the more it's going to look like the more it's going to look like it's not real, that it's a calculated effort to clean up a mess. And again, look, I'm trying to be fair to the story, but I'm trying to be fair to reality here too. And I think in this moment, any sort of delay is going to make it exponentially harder for Drew Brees to get this right with his teammates.
Mike, when you saw this, just, your first, what was your first football thought? Like the first thing I thought of, and again, maybe it'll be the exact opposite, but the first thing I thought of course, after getting through wow, that was insensitive and I can't believe he said that and all those things. But then I did think about the locker room and the New Orleans Saints football team, and that I almost immediately, my brain went, well, there goes the Super Bowl for the Saints. I don't know if they can do it now. Now, listen, maybe it can be the opposite effect where it could bring the team together eventually and they can all, use it as something to jump off on in a positive way. And do that. But, initially I went, wow, this is going to be really hard to overcome for this Saints team who's been through a lot already and is talented and in that Super Bowl window. It makes me question whether you could weather this type of storm for a full football season.
I mean, my first thought was, wow, Drew's going to have some explaining to do behind the scenes to his teammates about this, because they're not going to want to hear a repeat of the phrases that were used to ignore Colin Kaepernick's message in 2016, to allow people made uncomfortable by what Colin Kaepernick was trying to say to utter that phrase so they could ignore it. That's bringing back an old wound, and it's not going to be helpful. But I thought it would all happen behind the scenes. What was jarring to me was the public nature of the reaction, which just shows you how strong and powerful this moment is. The old ways of doing things, of handling these things discreetly and behind the scenes and not airing out dirty laundry, In this moment, that doesn't work. In this moment, the dirty laundry's getting aired out, right? And that may be the only way to properly advance the discussion and get people to take a hard look at things that they've said and things that they've done that maybe they need to reconsider.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.